and the region experienced two monsoon surges which brought about prolonged rain. The first monsoon surge lasted 4 days, from 10 to 13 January, and the second monsoon surge lasted 3 days, from 17th to 19th January. From 10th to the 11th January, a total of 255.2 millimeters of rainfall was recorded at Changi, which is more than our average monthly rainfall of 222.4 mm in January. Over these two monsoon surges in January 2025, there was one incident of flooding, which occurred at Jalan Seaview. Jalan Seaview is a low-lying area subject to tidal influence. Since the 1980s, a tidal gate has been put in place in the outlet drain downstream of Jalan Seaview to help mitigate tidal flood risks for this area. On 10th January, heavy rain coincided with high tide, and this led to the flooding at the sidewalk bend, about a stretch of about 50 meters of Jalan Seaview. The flooding on the road was about 0.3 meters and lasted close to 3 hours due to the high tide. The house next to this road experienced flooding within its carport area. Based on PUB's records, in the past 5 years, this is the only stretch of road along Jalan Seaview that has experienced flooding. While PUB had upgraded the roadside drains at Jalan Seaview in 2014 to increase their drainage capacity, some areas in the vicinity of Jalan Seaview are still susceptible to flooding as the road levels are marginally above the high tide level. The longer-term plan is to reclaim and build Long Island, which protect the East Coast area, including Jalan Seaview, from rising sea levels and tidal flights. Agencies have initiated technical studies and are engaging the public and stakeholders to shape the plans for Long Island. We encourage developments in low-lying areas, including at Jalan Seaview, to put in place their own flood protection measures, such as deploying flood protection devices. To help residents and businesses, PUB has been issuing flood protection devices, such as flood barriers and inflatable sandbags, as part of the annual monsoon preparation and providing guidance on how to deploy these devices properly in a timely manner. Climate change will increase flood risks in Singapore due to more extreme and unpredictable rainfall. PUB adopts a multi-pronged approach to enhance Singapore's flood resilience. First, PUB continually upgrades our drainage infrastructure. The government has made significant investments over the decades to upgrade drainage infrastructure, with about $2.5 billion spent since 2011. We've successfully reduced flood-prone areas from approximately 3,200 hectares in the 1970s to less than 25 hectares today. PUB conducts regular reviews on the adequacy of the existing drainage system and considers the latest drainage design standards and climate change data. There are 19 ongoing drainage upgrading works, with 6 more projects slated to commence in 2025. We will spend about $150 million on these projects in FY 2025. We are currently reviewing the drainage infrastructure plan for the next review cycle of FY 2026 to 2030. That said, it is neither practical nor prudent in land-scarce Singapore to keep building more drains or expanding our drainage infrastructure. Doing so would require significant land and financial resources, which would then not be available for other important uses. To put things into perspective, flooding in Singapore is localized and typically subsides within an hour. It is hence more effective to build up flood resilience at the systems level, where building owners, developers, as well as the wider community all play their part alongside the government. To this end, PUB works closely with building owners and developers on measures that have to be taken at the individual development level to strengthen flood resilience. PUB's Codes of Practice, or COP, on surface water drainage provides requirements on minimum platform and crest levels for buildings, and flood protection measures that building owners and developers must implement to protect their premises. Amendments to the Sewerage and Drainage Act were passed in November 2024 to ensure that owners and developers continue to operate and maintain the flood protection measures in their premises properly after implementation. PUB also proactively engages the community to better prepare for and respond to flood incidents. PUB works with NEA to forecast intense rainfall and issue early warning of potential floods to better prepare the public ahead of flood incidents. PUB launched its flood preparedness campaign, Get Floodwise, in November 2024 and worked with partners such as Grab and Blue SG to share flood readiness tips with drivers and commuters. Managing flood risks is a collective effort between the government, businesses, and the public. I encourage everyone to play their part in enhancing Singapore's flood resilience. Thank you.
Mr. Desmond Chu.
Thank Minister for the reassurance that there are future plans to protect our coastal low-lying areas. I have two SQs. The first one is, it's going to take some time for us to build, whether it's a Long Island or longer infrastructure improvements. What are the interim measures, including more pumps that can be deployed quickly, especially when we're going to expect more of such monsoon type of weather events? The second one is, we have committed to certain investment in the longer run. Now that we start to see more frequent occurrences, do we expect to invest even more? And if so, are we in the process of determining how much this would be? Thank you.
Minister Fu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank the member for these questions. I think they're very thoughtful. Indeed, I think we need to look at both short-term as well as long-term measures. I think in the short run, we would like to see how we can prepare the public, including residents, better, faster, and give them more effective means to protect themselves, including the availability of more devices to protect their own property. Whether the pumps will be really effective. In the case of Jalan Seaview, that may be doubtful because we're talking about the coincidence of both intense rain and high tide. So it's difficult to pump something out if the tide is against you. So what we really need to do is, where we can, for example, in Marina Barrage, we will start pumping ahead of time, prepare as much as we can, but still, more importantly, is to get the local community, especially in the flood-prone areas, to be prepared themselves. So awareness, public engagement, early warning, advising public to sign up to PUB's channel for information, also working with LTA to make some of these warning ahead of time more effectively through more platforms. These are all works that's in the progress. And in the longer term, we will want to review our flood drainage systems in tandem with our coastal protection system, because these are two sides of the same coin. In an intense rain with high tide, as we have seen recently, we need to manage both together. And that's the reason why PUB is now the Coastal Protection Agency, is really to bring consideration, at the same time, plan for it, and be prepared to invest in effective infrastructure. That we have said that we're going to invest significantly. We will review the plans, as I've said earlier on, for the next cycle of 2026 to 30. We're in the process of doing that. But I think that the point I'd like to make is that even as we are able to foresee greater occurrence of such extreme weather events, sometimes it's just not financially wise for us to prepare for the extreme events, because that will mean dedicating a lot of land, a lot of financial resources to protect us for those events that may not occur so regularly, or in places where it doesn't occur regularly. So it is still the same message that while government will look at improving our infrastructure, we need community, we need businesses, we need owners to also undertake protection measures to protect themselves, to protect their properties, and protect their families.
Second support.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have two SQs. One is regards to the Minister's answer earlier about the collaboration with NEA. Whether the Minister can share how does the Ministry intend to collaborate with other agencies to ensure coordinated flood response in the future if it gets to extreme sort of scenarios. Second is, I think, Minister, you shared earlier about flood mitigation measures for housing and corporates or individuals. Can the Minister share whether it's possible to have financial or logistical support available for residents and businesses affected by the floods, and whether there can be budget allocation for that for future flood mitigation? Thank you.
Minister.
I think I've alluded in our earlier reply that we are working with NEA when it comes to better forecasts and also giving us more localized forecasts, because I think when it comes to flood, it's very localized, especially in Singapore when our flood actually occur in very small areas. So it's all the more important for us to get very small resolution of forecasts at very near term. So that's something that we are working, including with NEA, with MSS, to have more sensors and better modeling in flood projection. We are also working with LTA to try to get some of these traffic advisory out faster. For example, we are working to include some of these warning and advisory in the ERP 2.0 so that we can receive the early warning as we are driving. We are also working with SPF, SCDF when it comes to emergencies that's relating to flooding in case there's a need to protect and save lives. So there are close coordination between PUB and many related agencies. On the need for financial support, I would say that actually the areas, the measures that we're putting in place really start from a very basic design. So when it comes to requiring developer, for example, we are expecting them to start putting in some of these budgets so that they can plan the infrastructure, the protection measures as and when they are planning. So this will be reflected in the land price and also in the development costs that they will be including in their development pipeline. As to businesses as well as in the residential area, I think PUB works very closely with them. In fact, over the years, actually, we have been reducing the flood-prone areas significantly. I mean, when I was a child growing up, I remember that, floods occurs in much wider area more frequently. And many more businesses, including some in Chinatown, for example, were quite regularly, suffered from the impact of heavy rain and flood. I think over the years, this has significantly been reduced. As I mentioned in the most recent monsoon surges, we only had one significant, reported flood incident. So as and when they are needed, we will offer more help, and we will keep a very, very close contact with the public, with businesses when it comes to engaging them on deployment of flood protection devices.